Hey there guys, just wanted to do a little tutorial on how to write a paragraph where you place your the sources from a synthesis essay in conversation with each other. I think the biggest reason that I want you to consider the chapters in They Say, I Say as meaningful is because I think it really does, in a very concise way, reveal to you how all of your academic discourse really is you entering a conversation that exists in this world, a conversation that we're having in order to transform this world, in order to make it better, in order to innovate, create. I could go on and on. And part of what your education is really is learning how to enter these conversations with a good foundation. And so really when you take your College Board exam on May 15th and you're writing your synthesis essay, consider your voice as important as any of the voices that you're reading. But remember that the voices that you're reading are tools for you to really kind of logically weigh your own argument and put it in connection with others. That's what your readers want to be able to see, that you can see kind of this global perspective, this global conversation that exists, global meaning that you really don't have blinders on and ignore kind of the logical thinking of others when you're moving forward. Part of creating your argument, part of creating your voice is the ability to consider the voices and thoughts and arguments of others. Without that, really you kind of come ill-prepared to the discussion. So the test is really trying to see, can you weigh what others are saying in connection to what you say? And really that's been the whole basis for the MODES project. And really it's kind of culminating with your study of They Say, I Say. I do want to sort of talk to you about the jot outline process and what I did to then move into a paragraph where I place the sources in conversation with one another. And I'm kind of going to go through what I've done, highlight things, reveal to you essentially how to do the steps, how to go through the mental steps that you need to be able to achieve some success on this essay. Keep in mind, too, that what I'm trying to do is to respond to some questions about the process of citing so that we avoid those twos that people got for technicalities, basically not citing when you should have cited. So I'm trying to model several things based on several questions that I received when I gave back your papers, and hopefully this is going to lead you to feeling much more successful on your summative synthesis. So first, remember, kind of outlining your thoughts before you get started writing is a good thing to do. You can do it in under 3 minutes, and actually it may feel counterintuitive to stop and do something like that, but really what it does is it saves you a lot of time in the long run. With my jot outline, I began with my claim. And at first, I'm just sort of throwing things out there, but after really studying the sources very closely, I believe that community is an essential part of the eminent domain process. And without there being a part of that process, eminent domain oftentimes can fail. As I did my jot outline, what I did really was kind of consider my sources and I guess what part of the conversation they reveal, and so that way then I can go to them quite quickly when I'm looking to weigh the opposite of what I think. Okay. So source B, C, and E all seemed to reveal what happens when we don't allow the community members to be a part of the decision-making process. Source D, of course, is the easiest one that reveals what happens when the community and the government are working together rather than corporations and the government. I believe Source A gives us a good amount of background and foundational knowledge just to sort of explore eminent domain. It's a great one to use in your introduction if you want to build a little background knowledge, but I also was able to use it when I talked about the sovereignty of the government and what people tend to distrust about the government. And that to me is kind of the crux of my argument, is that we breed distrust when we don't allow community to become a part of the discussion. So I've kind of figured out by taking a little bit of time exactly what I'm thinking, what my part of this conversation is, and now I'm ready to jump in. Now, I've skipped writing the intro because I think we've done a good amount with introductions, and I just kind of wanted to show you how to build a body paragraph using your sources, how to cite the parts of your sources so you don't move into the two, and then how to put these sources into conversation with one another. So here, first, what we'll do is, I guess, highlight my topic sentence of my paragraph in green. Remember, I keep saying this over and over again, that your topic sentences are significantly important because they are your grounding structure. They are something that you are supposed to so your topic sentence should be a claim that you prove. It should be a subclaim of whatever you included in your introduction. So here, my topic sentence: eminent domain has the potential to transform a place for better or worse in order to achieve the best outcome. The community members must be a part of the decision-making process for eminent domain to be embraced. Vidor, I'm busy. You have to come back. So here I need to go about the business of proving that, and I'm going to do that via putting these texts in conversation. So here, Freetown, source D, is representative of the positive effects of eminent domain when we consider how important it is for stakeholders to know they have been included at the table when making decisions about their neighborhood. I could probably put neighborhoods. So here, this part right here, that is me citing a source, and then here is me sort of laying out what I think it represents. But this isn't coming from the source. This is me really building my part of the conversation, okay? The reason at the table is in quotes is simply because that's a metaphor that's used often politically, especially, and it comes from the African American community. It comes from a Langston Hughes poem, and it's often used politically when we talk about stakeholders that are left out of the conversation, left out of the decision-making process. And as we read these sources, we begin to see that these stakeholders tend to be people that do not have some type of power, whether it be that they are of minority status or perhaps they are poorer and they cannot participate in some of the governmental decision-making process because they just can't. And so I'm very concerned about the stakeholder in general and them having a voice. That is why I think eminent domain can become successful. And so I have to explore that. Okay. So now I keep going. Freetown is also so important when considering the positive side of eminent domain because the residents appealed to the Greene County Redevelopment Authority for help. And so I'm just going to go ahead and call that all part of that source. And now I'm going to move into more commentary. It is a powerful endeavor to see a need, to work together as a team, and to bring that need to the hands of the government for assistance. When we think about government, many see it as the answer to a need, but in all actuality, the Freetown neighbor empowered themselves and worked in connection with the government in order to transform their neighborhood in a powerful way. They didn't allow the government to make decisions for them, but rather empowered themselves to make their communities stronger. So notice there's a large amount of commentary here, and this commentary reveals my side of the conversation. you need to work to develop that, get confident with your side of the conversation. Now I'm going to continue to look more closely at my source again. As a result of their revitalization efforts, I took the term revitalization straight from the title of the prompt, so I could put it in italics, I guess. I don't know that it matters. I didn't take it directly from the text, but I did take it from the title, so I'll go ahead and put it in quotes. Okay. So I'm going to... But then notice I move back into commentary pretty quickly. Freetown becomes an example of how government and community can work together rather than against one another. Many people have an antagonistic relationship with eminent domain because they perceive it as a misuse of sovereignty. So now I'm starting to move into further commentary, but now I'm starting to put things into conversation with each other. Okay, and so I do believe that this concept of sovereignty, is the reason that we distrust government, because of the nature of government, they are able to have some kind of power over us. Okay. Now notice I just say I believe this distrust has to do with the loss of voice and power many feel when eminent domain comes knocking. Notice I'm playing around with some personification there just to add to my style. Okay, and also I want to talk about the tone, some of the tone that we discussed when I first introduced the remediation to you. I can still kind of play around with my tone, but not be too antagonistic with it. Okay. Unlike the Freetown neighborhood, so notice right now, here I'm going to start introducing a source that's different from Freetown. Unlike the Freetown neighborhood, the city of New London reveals how eminent domain can breed distrust and destroy the communities within which Americans live out their lives. Okay, so I'll go ahead and kind of do that. But now the rest of this is me. The New London debacle is a textbook example of what many Americans would perceive as the 1% getting what they want through greed and misuse of power. This is all commentary of mine, whether it's to introduce the next side of the conversation. And notice, too, what I'm doing is I'm using sources, but I'm blending it into commentary to kind of reveal my own thinking. So here, the New London debacle is a textbook example of how what many Americans would perceive as the 1% getting what they want through the greed and misuse of power. Now I'm citing two sources. Corporatism becomes synonymous with racism. Okay, so notice I'm thinking this out. I'm unpacking this. I'm really considering it. When we study eminent domain cases like New London, making it quite easy to see why so many distrust that anything about eminent domain is just. Okay. So I'm sort of playing around with introducing several pieces of the conversation, looking at them, but now unpacking them. I would argue that the reason for this distrust is because the community itself did not get to come to the decision-making table. They did not get to bring to the table their concerns. Once a person begins to feel like she or he has been forcibly displaced, like the millions of poor minority community members before them, they no longer see the government as working for them. I could probably change that to with them.